Welcome to Stream of Conscience, brought to you by Democracy for America, Fairfield County, where we believe that change is possible and you can make it happen. I'm your host, John Hartwell. Our guest today is Heather Dean, Democratic candidate for state representative in the 134th District, covering parts of Fairfield and Trumbull. Heather is a teacher, a member of Fairfield's representative town meeting, where she sits on the Finance Committee, and has been actively involved in Fairfield schools, on the Board of Education's Cultural Diversity Task Force, and as a former president of the Osborne Hill School PTA. Heather, welcome to Stream of Conscience.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
So Heather, what has led you to run for state representative?
That's a question I'm asked most often, and the answer is easy. I know I can do a better job.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your areas of concern?
We need jobs and we need to cut taxes, and we need to support our schools and make sure that they're the best that they can be.
So let's talk about the first of those, creating jobs. What can the state legislature do to help create jobs here in Connecticut?
We need to have some kind of incentives in place for small business owners to be willing to expand their business and bring in an extra employee to help grow and create more employment opportunities. I'm not exactly sure what those incentives can be, but I know we have a bunch of very smart people that we can put our heads together and create something without it being an added expense to taxpayers.
So the governor has a First Five program where he's bringing in new businesses. Would you want to expand something like that?
Oh, absolutely. Anywhere there's an idea that you can support and encourage small business owners to bring in an employee or to bring in businesses, larger businesses to the state with the idea of expanding and hiring more, absolutely. Let's support that and make that happen.
And as you go around and talk to people in your district, what are the small business owners telling you?
That there's just not enough work, or the work that they're getting isn't, they don't have enough hours, or they don't have benefits, but primarily there's just not enough work out there, and they're willing to do just about anything. The other issue they have is transportation. Quite a few people that I've come across don't own cars. They just can't afford it. It's a luxury just that's beyond their ability, and they need better public transportation to get from, say, Trumbull or even Ansonia down to Stamford.
And so people are saying there's not enough work out there, and we know that. I mean, the unemployment rate in Connecticut is higher than it is in the nation.
It is. It is.
And has been for quite some time. So I think it's a little over 9%. And on the small business side, why are people not hiring, and what are they looking for?
They're afraid. They're afraid that it's going to cut into their bottom line. So they'll do all the work themselves instead of taking a chance and bringing someone in, say, maybe even just 4 hours a week or 8 hours a week. And I talk with them at length about this, and I explain the benefits of having somebody come in and just make follow-up phone calls for their business and making sure the deliveries are made on time, or helping them schedule themselves better so that they can take care of the work that they really are focused on, rather than the small details that can be picked up by an assistant. And really encourage them to take that chance. I do it in my own business, as a matter of fact. I have typically every couple of years, even I've had it every year, where I'll bring in a college student, or I'll bring in a mom who has not been working, who's looking for something a little bit more, or just to build their resume, and I teach them a trade. I bring them in for about 4 to 8 hours a week, and this is an extra cost to myself. I don't need that extra staff, but I'll teach them, and it builds confidence, it builds their resume, and they're able to go out and add to that, either by getting more hours elsewhere or just going out and applying for full-time work.
And so education has been a big part of what you've done in the community over the years. You are a licensed teacher.
I am.
You and your husband own a small
daycare. It's a daycare learning center for infants and toddlers. It's specific to an age group.
And you were president of one PTA, and you were secretary of another one.
I am. Yeah, I was.
So you've been deeply involved, and you, as you well know, Governor Malloy has been pushing some educational reforms. Can you talk about those? I
can talk about what I know, and that I think it's a step in the right direction. He's getting a lot of pushback, and I know there's many teachers that are upset with it. And I think when I talk with voters who are teachers, the big concern is retribution. They feel that there's going to be unfairness in their evaluations, and they don't see how it can be made fair. And frankly, they're upset that the administrators are not being held accountable too. And that's what I want to see. I want to see that it's balanced and fair, where you have administrators being evaluated as well as teachers. The only way I see that happening, or a suggestion, is to have a group of equal peers coming into each school, not from their own school, to do the evaluations. So that would support Governor Malloy.
Teachers evaluating teachers, you're saying?
Exactly, exactly. And likewise, the same thing with administrators. And it can't be done, I feel, internally, because there's always that question of retribution, where if you have a school system that's very similar to Fairfield, with this, the certain rubric created for the guidelines they have to follow, I think that that's the most fair way of doing it.
So teacher evaluation is clearly one of the major pieces of educational reform.
It is.
System evaluation, I think, is really what we're talking about here. How is it that we fairly assess what one school district is doing or not doing in comparison to what we would like to see them all doing? Obviously, we want a public school system which turns out the very best educated students so that everybody has a good chance in life. So how do we evaluate school systems, and then for those which are not doing so well, what do we do to make them better?
Well, those are great questions, and I think that that's really the million-dollar question. How do we make everybody equal so that we're educating the children with the same curriculum, and that they're prepared and able to go out in the world, or even stay here in Connecticut, which is really what we're hoping that they do and want to stay here. Greenwich, I understand, has a newly developed evaluation program, and it's been very, very successful. I don't know all the details of it. I spoke with Jen Kennelly, who works down there, and she was elaborating on it somewhat when we had talked about it. And I think that we have to have an evaluation that, again, it has to be equal to each school. So you would have Fairfield being evaluated that are from system, or rather from teams from other schools that are equal to Fairfield, and likewise you would have towns like New Britain or cities like New Britain evaluating New Haven or Bridgeport, so that they're dealing with the same socioeconomic issues that they can connect with and relate to and help each other, rather than having a more affluent community evaluating a less affluent community. There has to be a fairness and balance in there.
Okay. I know also that you've been interested in transportation and infrastructure.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
And so living here in Fairfield County, where we have the Merit and we have I-95 and we have the train system, all of which are public means of transportation, what should we be doing there?
Well, I'd like to see a light rail system being put in place, or, I mean, this is a long-term project for infrastructure, and move people, commuters, off of the highway that's clogging them and onto a light rail system. And this could be where we feed off of Metro North that's already in place and successful on as outshoots of that into the smaller urban, or rather smaller urban and suburban areas, so that we can help Metro North be the best it can be, and just get the cars off the Merit and get them off the 95. Also, many years ago, I'm trying to think of it was a bridge that had been destroyed by fire, and the name has escaped me right now, in New York State.
Right, in Poughkeepsie.
Poughkeepsie, yes, thank you. You know, there's so much scuttlebutt about who's responsible to replace that, who's responsible to rebuild it. I'd like to see this being rebuilt, and then having freight, again, being moved by trains and get those off of the highway, or at least some of it, maybe not necessarily all of it, but some of it.
For those who are watching who don't actually know all the history here, and the bridge burned down in 1972, and it was the main artery for rail traffic into New England. And so when that bridge went down and it was never replaced, the rail can no longer fully serve the transportation needs for freight for New England, and so therefore I-95 and 84 are the main corridors into New England, and that's why we have all these trucks on our roads. Exactly,
and well put. You said better than I could have. And this is something I have talked about really for a decade since I've found out about it, and know that it's something that's really doable, fixable, and can help significantly. We're still going to need trucks. There's no doubt about it. This is not to replace trucks and moving freight in that regard, but it's to shift a big portion of it from the highways onto the rails, where it's much more efficient and can move large quantities and cut down on these horrific accidents that are taking place and loss of life and property. It's awful.
Well, and I'm sure, as you know, the roads are full morning, noon, and night. You can drive on 995 at 10 at night in the morning, and there's still an amazing amount of traffic there. And so that requires a lot of upkeep, and that requires money.
It does.
And we have, I think, the highest gasoline tax in the country, and still not enough money to repair all the bridges and keep the roadways as safe as we want. How do we fund all of these things?
We have to start cutting. We really do. We have to start cutting areas that, programs that are just not producing what we had hoped that they would produce, and that's a start. What we've done in Fairfield on the RTM is we've moved from defined benefits to defined contributions, and I believe we can do that in the state.
That's in the pension plan.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and we can do that, and it's certainly not going to solve all the problems, but it's a step in the right direction where we're starting to look long-term on what's more cost-effective, where people can still get the benefits that they're building towards, that they're working towards, and that they're entitled to because they have worked and contributed towards it. And that's a step of what we can do to try to be able to fund long-term these projects to make sure our infrastructure is in place.
So if you're elected, what committees would you like to serve on?
Well, education, of course, and I would like to serve on transportation as well, and probably wherever they feel that I would be best qualified to be. But that would probably be my top two.
Well, and education and transportation are favorite committees for people from Fairfield County.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, they are, especially transportation, because the needs are so great.
Right, and job creation is certainly part of it, and I would have to find out where to best move forward in that.
Well, thank you very much for coming in.
You're welcome, John.
Good luck with your race.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. This is wonderful.
Hope to have you back in the middle of the session next year to report on what's going on in Hartford.
I hope so.
That's our show for this week. We hope you enjoyed it. You can find all our shows on YouTube by going to youtube.com/user/DFATVnet. We're also on Facebook and Twitter. Or you can send comments or suggestions for a show to info@dfa-tv.net. If you'd like to learn more about progressive political action, we meet at 7 p.m. on the first Wednesday of the month at the Silver Star Diner in Norwalk. We'd love to have you join us. Remember, change is possible, and you can make it happen. This has been Stream of Conscience, and I'm your host, John Hartwell. Thanks for watching.